Yeah, welcome everybody. We'll do like a little intro. We'll give an outline. We've got some really good stuff. Really cool
hmm
stuff. Before we get too far though, let's give a
Yeah,
shout out to our sponsor.
yeah. Pickleball Central. They hooked us up. They're gonna have some great Black Friday deals, so definitely go check them out. They have like 20 to 60% off of stuff, depending on like brands. Um, and then what's great is they hooked us up with an exclusive code. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a win-win-win. They've helped give us our start, and then in return, we get to offer everybody through this podcast a stackable code to all the deals that they have for
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday. So there's the only code that I know of that I've been told that will stack on their Black Friday deals. So like Holbrook, 30% off list price. You can add 5% to that. 35%, or yeah, 35%. Carbon, carbon is listed at 20%. You can take that to 25%. So thanks to them, and everybody
Yeah.
gets a little
The only
benefit.
There's a couple things like ball machines. I think like the Titan the Titan machines are like $200 off. The code does not stack on those. And then drop shipped items does not stack on those either. But like everything else, an additional 5% off on top of what they're already offering.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
a partial
definitely
stack.
go check them out.
It's a partial
Yeah.
stack, so they'll do 2% on those things as well. So if anybody's like
Oh, okay.
wanting a ball
Nice.
machine or those like drop shipped items, uh, like the Titan's already $200 off, but you can take 2% more off. It's something. So that's very kind of
Yeah.
them to offer to the viewers. So,
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
okay, ready to move on?
Let's go. Let's get in right into
Okay.
it.
Well, first, who are you, Cody? What do you want people to
Uh,
know about
that's a
you?
great question. That's a great question. Who am I? So yeah, my name is Cody. I run the Carpe Dinkum Pickleball channel on Instagram and YouTube. And I'm on TikTok now. I mainly just make like memes and random content, pickleball content sometimes, but I've been trying to move more into doing like coaching type videos, instructionals, stuff like that to try to help people evolve their game a little bit. Other than that, it's like quick reviews of paddles here and there, and then like random product reviews. Like Salty sent me a variety pack of their like hydration packets.
Sure,
Those are really good. Yeah, and then like apparel stuff like and stuff. I get sent that.
sure.
Um, Shoes. Wearing some Cypher shoes right now, trying those out, and then hopefully I'll be giving a good review on those here soon. So I mean, yeah, if anybody wants to send me anything to give a not like exclusive pickleball product review, but could be used for pickleball, send it over.
So you're
We'll
saying you're
we'll
a
do
jack
it.
of all trades.
And master of none, exactly.
That's what I'm hearing. And you're a TikToker. That was important. Cody's on
Unfortunately,
TikTok.
yeah, just started. I,
Okay.
I really don't post much. It's really like I just make stuff on Instagram mainly, and then I'll just copy that over to TikTok and Facebook or YouTube
Mm,
Shorts, and that's
yeah.
that's about that's about it.
Yeah.
That's my entirety of social media. I'm not great at editing, so
Yeah.
if anybody sees stuff that's just edited terribly, you know, give me some tips. I'll take them. I'm all ears.
You and me both. I have an
Yep.
editor. I don't edit most of my own videos. Aaron edits my videos, and he's great.
Shout
Super
out
awesome
Aaron.
work with. But yeah, we're gonna try and keep this one short and sweet to the point, and just get to the good stuff. So um,
Yeah.
let's just give a little outline. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, so we have some good paddles to talk about. Do you want to announce those paddles right off the bat, or do you want to?
Nah, let's just talk about them when we get
Okay,
there.
yeah. So we're gonna be talking about some paddles, and we're introducing a segment which we still haven't named yet. So we're looking for names, but essentially, we're gonna get some community reviews from non-reviewers kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
a non-review community review, which doesn't really roll off the tongue. So if you have a better name for it, leave it in the comments. If we pick your segment name, we'll do something for you. We'll figure that out, but
Yeah,
we'll make sure you're
yeah.
compensated
It's
in
just a
some
lot.
way.
It's a lot to say. Yeah, community reviews. Yeah. Shout out to the guys who came out and helped. So the paddles that we're talking about today, we'll get there. But the paddles that we're talking about, a lot of them, a few of the locals came out and tested them, played some games with them, and they're gonna share their thoughts from a perspective of a non-reviewer. So that was really cool of them, and several of them last minute as well. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, whoever names it the coolest thing, we'll send you a paddle or something. But okay.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll hook you up. And then yeah, so stick around until the end because I'll be dropping some details about a really really big giveaway that I'm doing around the holidays. I kind of like how you said you just like whipped it up last minute. I was literally like putting my kids to bed and I had this idea and I like hurried up, got them to bed, and then like just started messaging a bunch of companies to see about hooking up a giveaway, and
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
calling it the 12 Days of Christmas giveaways. So for a bunch more details on that, stick around to
Okay.
the end, and I'll give some more information. Probably
Cody's
talk
got
about
12
the
days of
companies that
Christmas.
are yeah. I'll talk about the companies that are involved in that. I'll keep it
Okay.
short and sweet though.
Okay, cool. Uh, and then before we get into some other stuff, just a couple announcements. So of upcoming releases, the Chorus Fires, they're dropping on November 30th. So when this gets published, which will be soon, it'll be at the end of November, end of the week.
Hmm.
The Invader is also dropping
Yeah,
this week, dropping on Friday.
that's the one that went
Um,
to outer space, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, I think I think they're waiting for it to get back. I don't have mine yet actually, and then when it's supposed to come in, I'll be gone on a trip. So unfortunately, I won't have a review out for that at least on release day. I've been talking to Lewis at Pickleball Pursuit. He's been putting a lot of time on his. He got an earlier one. I don't know, little weasel.
Yeah,
Anyways,
he's got
yeah,
a
he
lot of
says it's
really good
cool. He
things
says it's
to
really
say
like it.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. That's coming out on Black Friday. I
Yeah.
don't want to spend too much time on this. I think people are sick of hearing about the Ripple without
Yeah.
it being released. It's cool. It's cool. It's unique. But anyways, official
It's
release.
set for the 6th. So we'll yeah.
They made some changes, even like just barely. Like they basically reinforced some of the exterior, the tip of the paddle. There were some cracks, and
Yeah.
loose edge guards and whatever. But there's that, and then the Ryu. We'll talk about that
Which
today.
we'll be talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our paddles, but it's coming out. It's supposed to be coming out in early December. They haven't given us an official date, but those are our coming paddles.
Yeah. And then before we get into the paddles that we have positive things to say about,
Yes. Okay. We have another announcement. This is a public service announcement.
yeah, quick
hold on,
PSA.
let me see if this. Okay. Yeah. So here's my public service announcement for today. People really should you should not buy mods. These mods are, and it's not even about. Okay, I hate mods, and it's not about how they play. I don't care. I don't care how hard they hit. I don't care receiving a drive that's hit hard. There's other paddles that hit hard. It's not about that, but they break. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
do you know anyone that has a mod or has had a mod for a long time, or rather, not a new one, but that's had one for an extended time that hasn't broke one?
No.
Yeah.
No.
If you look like
Everybody that I know that has a mod is on their second or third.
yeah,
And they were like, I don't even want to like the worst part about it is that they're like I don't want to have a second mod in my bag for if and when this one breaks, especially like during a tournament or something like that, right?
That's the argument, right? Is that you could I've heard you buy two so that you can keep flopping them when you have to do the return. But even when you do that, like you're not going to be playing with the same paddle during the period you have it anyways, because it kind of constantly changes. It never really stops.
Yeah.
It just kind of like meow, up and then down.
Yeah. No.
So
Any paddle that you have like 20 or more hours on is not going to play the same as a brand new variation of that paddle. Like so it's so tough to go from like playing with one that you've been using for a
Oh
while,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then that's why like I think like a lot of pros even say they have a paddle that they only use in tournaments, and then the exact same paddle that they use for like practice and
sure,
drills and whatnot.
sure.
Because they want their paddle that they're using in tournaments to always play the exact same or something along those lines. But yeah, so kind of the same thing for mods. It's like you can't, I don't know it, without going
Well,
too off on a tangent. It's I've never really liked them, especially like, and it kind of brings me back to like they're designed to break, and that's not, in my opinion, what a paddle should be doing. You know?
yeah, yeah. And to your point, I'm not even talking about like breaking your paddle in, which happens to a lot of paddles, and then getting a new one and having it not being broken in. If you look at your
Yeah.
time versus performance like graph, um, it's not like, oh, I broke it in and now it's a thing. It's like, here, no, it constantly
No.
gets hotter and it breaks. So this one, I took this out earlier today actually. Let me see. So I invested. I got the Stalker Pro 3S radar gun. It's pretty sweet, but it's the most accurate I've found so far for measuring velocity, and it does RPMs and stuff too. So I'm working through my whole bunch of paddles just for precision purposes. But anyways, my first 6 drives with the mod today, 55 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, 61 miles an hour, 57 miles an hour, 56 miles an hour, 59 miles per hour. So
That's consistent,
that's
right?
yeah, yeah,
Sarcasm.
consistently inconsistent. And this is like 3 weeks old. If you hear it, I don't know if this will show through or not
Oh, I heard that from your.
from the earphones
Wow.
even. Yeah, so a local player let me borrow this. I have one as well that's core crushed, but you can squeeze the tip of it like a third of the way in. So if you're thinking about getting the mod, just get the 3S.
Yeah.
I
Like I
ran it
know they
through
have
through
that
testing
foam
today
layer
as
that goes
well.
around. Like I know they have that foam layer that goes around, and like that's a little bit squishier, but that shouldn't be squishing that much.
Oh no! It shouldn't do that at all. No. Yeah. So don't get the mod. Just get the 3S instead. So that
Yeah.
it's close. It's a similar feel. Like I averaged that at 57 miles per hour on my serve. So I mean the risk is
And
still there, but it's not guaranteed. And it at
yeah.
least
And for
has more
people
time.
and for people that are like, "Oh, well, the 3S isn't USAPA
Yeah. Well,
certified." It's the UPAA is the governing body or something like that. Like you can still use the 3S in tournaments.
depends.
Like
Yeah, it
so
depends on the
it's
tournament. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you could always check with the tournament, verify with the tournament director beforehand. Their emails listed when you're signing up on pickleball brackets or tournaments or whatever.
Sure.
So just reach out to them, make sure that they don't have any issues with it. But like they're UPAA certified, so you can still use the 3S in tournament. I literally heard 2 conversations about that today at the courts
Yeah.
where people were describing like the difference between the mod and the 3S, and he's like, "Yeah, you just can't use the 3S in tournaments." I was like, "You can."
Yeah. Yeah. It just depends.
But
But you just don't want a broken paddle. So,
yeah.
anyways, next.
All right. So you had a little bit of a switch up last minute.
I think so. We're gonna talk about the Pickleball Apes Pulse series, the Pulse V in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So I still love this paddle. I'll say that, and I'll say there's been a lot of questions about the break-in period, whether it's real, what it means, if everyone's experienced it. Well, yeah, it's definitely real. But it's different. It's different from what you'd see with like a mod or some other Gen3's where it's just almost kind of a continuum that changes over time. So anyways, I'll share some stats. So I got a brand new one that I took out and tested miles per hour, RPMs and stuff. And then I have my broken in one. And so we can compare those. And then after that, I cut these open and looked to try and figure out what the changes were. So let's talk about those on our performance testing. So the non-broken in apes with the Stalker Pro, 54.2 miles an hour. And then after the break-in, which I'll say I've used the Pulse V kind of as my main paddle for the last 6 weeks. Anytime I've needed to play good, I play with the Pulse V. A couple others have like kind of give it in a run, but it's been mostly my main. So the Broken In Apes, 56.5 miles per hour. So up from 50.2
Nice.
to 56.5. RPMs up a little bit too, but almost kind of negligible. The new one, 2,187 revolutions per minute. And then the new one was 2,223. I imagine there's some trade-off between like the grid wearing down versus like the compression where it grabs the ball a little bit more, almost kind of a trade-off. But statistically, just a little bit faster. Not so much that I would say like we're in power paddle range, but
Yeah.
if you haven't heard the sound difference yet, it definitely like when you first get it, it has more of a high pitched sound, and then the Broken In ones are certainly more deep sounding. So you can hear it, you can feel it. And now for the dissection part. I started with the Pulse E. I cut that one open because I wasn't playing with it as much as I was with the V. So I wasn't as heartbroken. But I then cut open the V because I needed to know. So we'll get to there. So when I cut open I'll put these on screen too, so you guys have something to look at. You know what I'm talking about here. So the first thing that I saw is if you look at like their website on the Pickleball Apes website, it shows this a depiction of 2 rows of foam, a lot like the Yola 3S, but there's actually 3. There's 3, and then it shows also that there's like these carbon fiber rings that they put on top to kind of prevent the foam from expanding. And I talked to Ivan about this before too, and he was like, "Oh, it's like the best we can do to make a picture, but it actually, encapsulates the foam." And so I was like, okay, like take a word for it. So then, looking at it here, it definitely does look like it runs all the way down. That carbon fiber material kind of encloses it, almost like it's partitions between the foam layers. And then I'm not super familiar with like these different types of foams. And how they look and feel. So then I cut open just a normal Gen 2 like thermoform paddle as well. And I'll put that on the screen here too, just to kind of compare. I squished them down, sent the video to the Oracle, Justin from Pickleball, etc., to see what he thought too, because this is supposed to be polyurethane foam, which is what is typically used for, the edge foam material in thermoform paddles, which is different than like the expanding EVA foam that you see in like a lot of the hotter Gen 3's. So when you press on the edges of the foam in the Pulse series, it does seem to like kind of rebound and take its shape a little bit more than the more dense polyurethane foam of the Gen 2. So I don't know, not quite sure what to make of that. It's really hard to say. Justin wasn't sure either. It's like, well, it's just kind of hard to tell. Sometimes it's a gradient, I guess, in some kind of ways, the composition of the different foam types. So, and then, then I was like, well, I mean, that's what a new one looks like, or mostly new one. I've played a bit with it, but it's not broken in. So then I was like, all right, fine. I'll cut open the Pulse V. So, I got this one open, and at first I was like, why is this broken in, right? Like it to the naked eye, like grossly, it looks mostly like the same as the other one, and I'll put this on screen as well. But at first, when I cut it in like a sagittal plane, a plane where you can take like the front of it off, and you look down on top of it. If you look really close, it's subtle, but there is a bit of a crack, like on that inside, a little bit of a separation on the inside layer of the foam and the carbon fiber ring. I'll split it open and kind of show you on screen as well. So I was like, well, maybe that's it. And then I was like, well, I'm like still curious. So I was like, I wonder if you can actually like take these carbon fiber tubes like out. Like you can like totally take them out and like cool, it's tube. Like people might want to see that. So like I started dissecting it more, and I cut out a little square chunk, and that's kind of the first time I noticed this other thing too. So, at first I was like, well, actually, they're not tubes; they're C-shaped. And then I was like, well,
Okay.
actually, like that's not what I saw on the Pulse E. Like if you look at the Pulse E, like it's totally symmetric. It's totally circumferential. Like it encompasses the foam.
Okay.
But in this one it doesn't. There's breaks on the foam on the inside. And granted, I'll say like some of this damage, like to an extent, could have been done with like the saw as I was cutting it open. So
Mm-hmm.
I like got out some hand tools. I cut multiple sections out of the Pulse V at many different parts. And all the parts, like all the parts that I cut out showed this break. I'll put it on screen as well. Between like
Yeah.
it's almost like it tore open, and that kind of correlates to what I felt like in gameplay too. So the V felt
Yeah.
a particular way, and I played with it for me like 3-4 sessions. It wasn't long, and I drive more than I probably should, so I swing hard, and it's a little bit cold these days. So it was almost kind of sudden. It wasn't gradual, and it wasn't continuous. It was like a sudden shift in gameplay where it was like, burp. And I was like, oh, like I feel like it broke in. But then it did that thing, and then it stayed there for like 5 weeks. It just stayed there, didn't change anymore after that. So I was like, I'm loving this. Like whatever happened, it was awesome, and I had no idea. But and it's and when that happens,
So you're
it's almost
thinking
like a pop. Yeah.
that tube kind of like opened up, and that's where it kind of like quote unquote broke in, where it loosened, and then that way it like wore into like where the power equalized and the pop and everything kind of like all evened out or equalized out to where it was like finally not going to change anymore.
Yeah, and I think so. I think, and again, this is just if the picture is painting the story the way that the story actually went, it looks like the tubes kind of blew out, and because it wasn't gradual up to that point, and then after that point it was steady.
Yeah.
So it was like something happened at one point, and that's what I think
Yeah.
it is. That's my hypothesis.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, other than that, like, I mean, that break-in period, I felt that as well. So that explains it. Um, it, I gotta say, I've really been enjoying the Pulse series paddles. My preference goes to the S shape. I lean more towards those hybrid shapes, and for that little bit addition in power. But I've really been enjoying the Pulse paddles from Apes. So I mean, yeah, if that's that after that break-in period, it doesn't feel like it changes anymore, and it's got some really good power. I still wouldn't put it in like the power category. It's definitely like an all-around type paddle. Honestly, I would say it leans more towards control. It's like
Sure.
a very soft paddle, and then when you need to really rip it, it kind of like grabs and throws the ball to add that little bit of extra power, which is really nice when you need it.
Yeah, it's funny that so Brent, if Brent's watching this, another local player, so he got the S, got the hybrid, and another big question is like people had because a lot of people were talking about the breaking period with the V. They're like, well, does it happen to the other shapes too? So, and Brent and I talk a lot. So he plays with the S, and a similar thing. He's like, today it happened today. He's like, I was playing a small pop, and then different. And he's like, it's much better. Still, yeah. He's like, I still wouldn't call it power paddle, but like it happened. So for him, and he hits even harder than I do. Took several sessions, so I can't remember how many he said for sure, but I don't want to say like 7, 8, 9, whatever. But it happens, and if it happens to those, I think it's probably what happened to most. And then I think the core. Yeah, it's not core crushing, so it's different. Like, the core, like I squeeze it, and I'll put this on screen as well. Like it's the honeycomb core is still totally intact. It's just that foam that expanded. So I don't know if, and that's 6 weeks of solid play. So I don't know if this like would break more after like several months, but at this point, there's nothing that would make this paddle illegal. There was nothing that would make this paddle. I don't know. Like you asked me earlier if I would still recommend it after I found this. What I'll say is I would still play with it, and I still might. Not obviously not the cut up one, but people need to know that seems to be what's happening, and they should make their own judgment, because it's not going to be the paddle that after a certain amount of time, it's not going to be the same paddle as it was when you bought it. So if you try it for a couple of days and it's not what you like, well, it's not going to be like that. And if you try it the first couple of days and you really like it, it's also not going to be like that. It's
going to change.
Yeah. So you need to know that. And if you know what you know about what's going to happen, and the fact that there's still time to be had on knowing what's going to come in the future, and you want to try it, then cool. But you should know.
Yeah.
Can't recommend it without telling people that, at least. But otherwise, I still like it. Still awesome.
Yeah.
Oh.
If that's like honestly, that's like the only negative that I have about the Pulse. Like it's a really, really good paddle.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just like it'll play much differently before versus after the break-in period. So don't judge it until after that. Or it's like if you could try someone's who's been playing with it for a couple months, like try that paddle and then make your decision.
Yeah. Or like it's only been out for like 6 weeks, so maybe like a month. If somebody's played with it a number of times at least. Or if not, it's got a 30-day return period, so try it out for a couple of weeks at least. But okay, ready to move on. Okay.
Yeah.
The Ryu. So I have that one here. You fit with this one, I think, as well, Cody.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one.
I like it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. It's
in a weird way.
It's a first in its class for a couple of things. So it's a wide body, 15 millimeter, but it's Gen3 like, and it's polyester. It's like a polyester carbon fiber blend. So
titanium.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what it was formerly known as, titanium. So it's Gen 3 in the sense that, so like if you look at the Yoas or the Apes paddles, they've got those multiple rings that run up and around. So the Ryu has two. So they have a double layered ring as well, but it only goes starts at the handle and goes up around the bottom edge of the paddle. And I'll put this on screen as well there. So, and then in addition to that, they've added weight, some weighting element. I forget what they put in there, but that's cured in with the molding process. Roughly 2.5 to 3 inches above the handle as well for 4 inches. So it extends kind of around the bend and then up the paddle. That's kind of stuck in there, 4 grams on each side, 4 grams for 4 inches.
Yeah.
And all that is to say, like, they didn't design this for power. Like, they don't want a floating core, but they want, one, vibration dampening with the double foam layers, and then taking the weight away from like that very bottom and allowing it to be up front. And then the R&D they did with adding the heat for adding the weight for the perimeter in the molding process is for twist weight and sweet spot location. So they wanted to move the sweet spot up on the paddle instead of having it right in the middle like a lot of wide bodies have.
Yeah, which I think was a very smart move, because the reason why a lot of people don't like the wide bodies is because of the fact that like the sweet spot is a little bit more central for most paddles, right? So having that weight towards the top and bringing the sweet spot up almost makes it feel like you're playing with a hybrid paddle because of that, which was really nice. And like, do you want to talk about that twist weight?
Yeah, so
which is just astronomically high.
It's interesting. So they tweaked the construction of this for a while to like optimize swing weight, twist weight, and whatnot. Yeah. So when the Pulse V came out, that was my new record for highest twist weight. And now twist weight isn't like a direct 1-to-1 correlate for sweet spot and stability and whatnot. It's probably the best marker for it, but as you change like paddle construction and all that stuff, it's not a 1-to-1. So take that for what it is, and I'll mention that in a second. But the Pulse Apes was the highest, and I think it was 7.63. Yeah, 7.63. And then this one, 7.7. So for twist weights that I've recorded stock, this is the new highest.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, when I first picked that paddle up I immediately was like, this has some weight to it, and I was like, I definitely want to play with it stock before. Like, I typically play with the paddle stock, like not even an over grip, no lead or anything, for at least like a session, and then I'll go home and I'll add the grip, and I'll be like, I want to,
Yeah.
maybe just a little bit more weight, a little better sweet spot, yada yada yada, and I'll kind of play with where I'm putting the weight. The Ryu, and we did check, it's pronounced Ryu, not Ryu.
Yeah.
The Ryu, one of the first paddles where I was like, I wouldn't want to add any weight to this at all. Like I would want to leave this stock weight and like add an overgrip, and that's it.
Yeah. See, I think it needs weight a little bit, but not necessarily for stability. I mean, so frame of reference is important. So as I mentioned before, I've been playing mostly with the Pulse V, which has a ginormous sweet spot. So I went from that to this, and I was like, well, it's not as big as I thought, but I think for a stock paddle, it's pretty good. But it's not ginormous by any means.
Yeah.
It's decent. I think it needs lead for power. So I took it out. So I did the testing and whatever with this. Let's see. So miles per hour, 54. So it's not horrible. It's not like the slowest paddle out there, but that's like around the same, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head, like the same ballpark as like the J2, not the J2K, but like the J2 and like Gen 1, like soft Gen 2 paddles. So it's okay. I think it needs lead for power, and then it spins well. Like RPMs were over 2,000. They're 2143, so it spins really good.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. I would like, and you also have to remember that that's the speed coming off the paddle for a standard wide body shape paddle. Like,
that's
as
true.
you get into like hybrid and elongated, you're gonna have the more, you're gonna get more torque for being further away from the focal point or the fulcrum. So it for a wide body paddle, I would say it's got some good power.
Yeah, I
and
think
some decent pop to it.
That's pertinent. I think that's a pertinent point. Yeah. For its shape, I guess it's good. So it's very snappy. As far as the the vibration dampening, I felt it was a bit stiffer. I mean, I don't usually notice vibrations that much. I notice when it's like there's totally none, like with the Pulse series, or when there's a lot, and I just kind of like didn't notice here. So I'd have to defer to other people on whether they think it's like super. Like I think it's just probably average. I don't think it's, and like for titanium polyester or whatever, a lot of those paddles are more plush. Not all, but a lot. This one is not. This one is not plush. I don't think.
No,
it's not.
I would not like. No, like the J2 Ti, very plush.
Yeah.
Right. Shogun, very plush.
Yeah.
I would not put this, like, if I was blindfolded and hit a ball, I would not have thought that it was like the titanium polyester weave surface layup.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I was like, it was almost one of those, like, you hit it and you're like, what did I just feel? Because it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
it's definitely a unique feel. And that's why, like, I liked it. And I think it would definitely be for a rather niche group of people. But I think it would be a great paddle for those people.
I think people are either going to love it or going to hate it. But
yeah,
it's also, so to my knowledge, there may be something that's close. But to my knowledge, I think it's the cheapest Gen 3 paddle there is, too. After discount codes, it's like $90. So it's cheap. It's cheap.
Yeah. A Gen 3 under $100. I think there's only like one other paddle I can think of, and that's that Picklin for Good Electo Gen 3. That's the only other one that I can think of off the top of my head that's anywhere near that price range.
There's probably some. There's like a bazillion out there, but I don't know. Not off the top of my head. So
off the top of my head, that's the only one I can think of. But
anything else?
So like again, for the price range, if you like standard and you want a little bit of pop and power, great spin. Yeah, definitely check out the Ryu.
Yeah, sure.
It's great. Like,
yeah. Overall,
I'll leave it at that until I can get some more
niche,
some more playtime on it. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it'll be interesting. So So this was in the community reviews coming up. So
okay,
those guys got a chance to play with it. So it'll be interesting to hear. I haven't showed you it. I'll show you it, and we'll
No,
show
I haven't
everybody it
seen.
coming
I
up. So
haven't
it'll
seen
be
the full
interesting
thing.
to
I've
hear
seen
what
like
they say.
less
So,
than a minute in, but
okay.
yeah.
Okay, the chorus fires. Ready to talk about those?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. First
I
off,
I
yeah. Go
first
ahead.
thing is like the how I explained it, and I think the best way for me, like I didn't really understand it until I said it, is the weight distribution in these paddles makes you think you're playing with a paddle that's shorter than what you're playing with, right?
Mm,
So the EX is the elongated, HX is the hybrid. It doesn't have that like flared sides and rounded top. Um,
yeah.
and then the SX is a standard. When I was playing with the EX, the maneuverability and like the balance point almost made me think I was playing with a hybrid shaped
Oh,
paddle.
I see.
And then when I was playing with the HX, it almost felt like I was playing with the SX. And then when I was playing with the SX, I was like, this is too fast in the hands for
So,
me.
so you're saying it
Like,
makes you feel like you're playing with a shorter one because they're light.
because they're light and there's extra weight. I was talking with Matt, the owner, and hold the paddle back up. The
Oh, yeah.
that red uh graphic underneath the
Wow.
word fire down there
Mm-hmm.
actually adds like weight to it. So so it brings the balance point lower to your handle right
Oh,
off the bat. And I want to say that they did something like special balancing in the handle itself to add
some
static
heavy
weight
pain or
without.
whatever that is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what
it's
that is.
it's so it's yeah, it's got some extra like weight distribution lower into the handle area and into the throat. So like it's very fast in the hands. And that's why like I think my preference is the HX
Mm.
because of the combination of like maneuverability and power and control and everything. I was more drawn to the HX. The SX felt
Interesting.
like a little bit off to me. Like it was still a great paddle. And by off I mean it was too fast. I was getting ahead of every single ball, and I was putting like I put an overhead into the ground, not even into the net. I put it into the ground because I got so quick with it.
Sure.
I put it into the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't feel like playing with this right now just because I need to adjust to it and I want to play right now.
Sure. Yeah. So these are. I think these paddles are awesome. Uh, they look awesome first off, but they have some really
Yeah.
special like characteristics in how they play. So you mentioned them feeling light. If we look at numbers, so if we quantify this before just saying like
Yeah.
it's light, so swing weights on these. So the SX, which is the standard one, 106 swing weight, HX 112, EX 115. So and that like 115 even for an elongated is on the lower end, I
Is
would say,
low.
and especially because these are definitely power battles. These hit hard, and they're
Yes.
poppy. They're quite poppy.
They do. They have a lot of pop.
People ask me a lot like if it's hard to like do well playing, like being a reviewer, and this is a good example of sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but sometimes it is. Going from a paddle like the Pulse V that's very dampened to these is hard because they're poppy and the launch trajectory angle. So these have a really low
Yeah.
dwell time. They don't absorb the ball like at all. It comes right off. And so if you're like playing with a paddle that kind of cushions the ball, like the paddle techs do it and gauges do it, a lot of the Gen3's do it, and you kind of are used to swinging to a lower point because it holds onto it more and launches out higher. Like you probably dump a lot into the net at first with these, but
Mm-hmm.
once you adjust, it's very satisfying. It's very
Yeah.
satisfying.
I gotta agree. And it's like you get into a hand battle, you just literally put the paddle in front of the ball and let the paddle do all the work, and
Yeah.
it pops off so fast. I'll say that was one of my favorite attributes, but it's like I will say it was hard to just like drop and get to the net at first. Um, it definitely took a lot of time to adjust, and it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's like you have to stop caring about the win percentage and look at the brighter picture of I'm reviewing a paddle right now. And I've definitely started talking to my friends and people that I play with and say like, hey, I'm reviewing this new paddle. I'm probably going to dump balls into the net, leave it a little high. If you end up with a couple extra bruises because I left it high in front of the opponent, in front of you, like, I'm sorry. And, and a lot of the people that I play with nowadays know that I'm constantly testing new paddles, and they're looking to see if I'm using the same paddle as last time or not, for that reason. But yeah, adjusting to the fire has probably been one of the hardest paddles to adjust to, because it's like it's got a different feedback as well. So if you're one of those people where it's like you rely on a specific feel of the paddle to determine whether it was a good shot or not, it's it's completely different. It's a very, very crisp feel.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that I could probably equate it to is like a 12 millimeter paddle, like the Holbrook 12 millimeter, the carbon. Like it's a very crisp feel right off the face of the paddle. So unless you're used to a very poppy paddle, it takes a lot of getting used to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely got vibrations. So if you don't like that, you don't like stiff paddles, you probably won't like them. But I like the EX. I like the fully elongated version. So for that one, so my average drive speed for that 59.6 miles an hour. So that's up there. That's very high. I think
Yeah.
the highest one. Granted, I'm going back through with the Sucker Pro, but the highest one I think is maybe just barely higher than that. I don't know if I think the only like
You said
recorded ones for sure.
your
The mod was like had some that went over 60, but
yeah, your mod was 61, 16, 61, but like
yeah, the 3S was 57 was
it's
an
crazy.
average. So on average, this was hitting harder than the Yola 3S, and it's a linear like effort
Yeah.
to power result like correlation. It's not like the Gen3's where it absorbs it. It's very very linear. So you get what you expect, and it's consistent. So
Yeah.
and it's good. And these spin well
Like, I
too.
have to
All
say,
three of
like-
these models, like all three of the models, have RPMs over 2,000. So they're all
Yeah,
spin
I
well.
have to say, like, it's one of those paddles where, if you can dial it in, it's going to be a very offensive paddle.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I
is.
mean? Like yeah,
Okay. I mean, they're cool. They're light. They poppy. If you don't like stiff paddles, you probably won't like them. But they spin well. They're aggressive. And they look really cool. So, I think
and they look really, really cool.
Yeah, and they're coming out. They're coming out even cheaper than the shapeshifters. So they're 170, I believe, before codes, and then after codes like 155, 156. Yeah. So overall, I think Chorus Fires, they're cool paddles. I think people are gonna like them. People, if you like poppy paddles, if you like
Poppy,
hard hitting paddles,
powerful.
if you want a soft paddle, or so if you don't like the stiff feel, you're probably not gonna like them. But good power paddles, and they look great.
Yeah, they look great. Yeah, play very, very good for power paddles. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about the Flow Prime X.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go ahead. You start.
Yeah, I got mine. Yeah, so Flow Prime X, easy to distinguish because it's got that like white gradient going up and around.
And the
they got
X.
the blue and then the X, yeah. And the Prime and all that. Anyway, they have the rose gold variation as well, which I think looks really cool as well. But it's so really, and you have the numbers to kind of explain it, but it feels very similar to the original Flow Prime, which I know was my main paddle for a very long time, like last couple months of last year, and then the majority, well, not majority, but like 4 months into this year, the Flow was my main go-to paddle, and it was just so consistent, great spin, good power, super soft. And the Flow Prime X, I feel like, is if you took that and then just like made it a little, gave it a little bit more pop, gave it a little bit more power, and then how they achieved that is what they did is they took the core, and as you see, it says carbon fiberglass right up top, right? So there's a layer of fiberglass in the face layup, and then they took the core and they went from 8 millimeter cells on the honeycomb core and shrunk it down to 6, which gave it like a more denser feel. So it feels like it still has some of that really good control.
Yeah.
A little bit less on the control scale, a little bit higher in the pop and power because of those like trade-offs. But
Yeah.
it's if you loved the original flow and wanted a step up in pop and power, this is the direction to go, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's like if you took a like 1 out of 10 dial and took like the pop and power of the flow from like a 6 to like a 6.5 maybe. That's what I care. I didn't think maybe a 7 at most. Like it's I like it. Again, yeah, like kind of what you're saying. I used the flow a lot. It's probably the paddle I used the most in 2024, especially when it first came out. Just played so consistent with it. But if you look at like the statistics, the numbers, so and feeling it in your hand, it feels a little bit heavier, feels a little more robust. But looking at comparing the Flow Prime X to the previous Flow, swing weight for the Prime X 113 versus 112, so like 1 point difference. Twist weight, actually mine measured a little lower, 6.06 versus 6.1. It was 0.1 ounces heavier. Balance points about the same. Overall, on the maneuverability index, where lower means more maneuverable, the Flare Prime X was a 45 and the Flow was a 41. So,
yeah,
I mean, for what you can measure, very similar. RPMs were both comparable. I forget what they are, and I think miles per hour were like maybe a mile per hour or so different. I don't have them on hand, but it was very close. I think the difference really is just a little bit more pop in the feel and just a little bit more power on drives. But for people who like the flow,
yeah,
I think, and just want a little bit more power, this would be great.
yeah. Like I think like the original Flow was absolutely a control paddle, and then this is more of like the all court category, in my opinion. It's like pushing into the all court. Still, I would say like still maybe more on like the softer side of things, but like pushing into that all court category.
Yeah, it's close. I don't know. I thought a lot about it, what I would call it. Labeling paddles in a category is tough, I think, sometimes. But
especially with like so many more paddles are coming out. Like this, a year ago, this would have been a power paddle. which is mind boggling, right?
Yeah,
and then the PPEs dropped, the mods, the 3S's, right? Like this hits like slightly harder than most other, like I think this hits harder than the majority of like the Gen 2 paddles. And then you have like and then you had the power paddles coming out. And so yeah, this would probably be more in that, like, to me it'd be more in that all court category, not so much of like the control or power or anywhere. Like that's because it's definitely not in the control anymore with the added pop, and it's not quite pushing into that power category.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I still think it feels pretty soft. Just in my opinion, I don't think it hits harder than the majority of Gen 2s. I think there's a lot that hit quite harder than it actually, but I love the way that, I mean, I can get good power from it when I swing it hard. But I can swing a lot of paddles hard. Like it's not going to do the work for you, but it's great for control. It's got more pop, more power than the original Flow, and it's like, so from now to November 30th, it's $100 as well. So with the Black Friday deal they have going, this is a super good deal. After that, it goes back up to 140, and then codes take it like 10% off, which is still a good deal. It would probably replace the Flow Prime X for like a good bargain value, overall value deal for me. So, okay, anything else about the Flow?
That's right. Nothing really, like nothing else that I can really think of. I will say the taper, I think the shape is definitely one of those shapes where it's like you love it or you hate the shape. Which is weird because like I love this shape. The handle, the taper on the handle and everything like really makes two-handed backhands feel comfortable for me. But I know a lot of people that say like it's the shapes, like the taper is like too weird for them or something like that. So it's like another one of those, like you either love it or you hate it because of the shape itself.
Yeah, that's true.
But
it's true. I like that shape though. It feels good for me. But
I
not
do
for
too.
everybody. I've heard people that hate it, but okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
All right.
Okay, so we've got a cool section coming up now. We've got our community review. So Cody hasn't seen this yet. So the reactions will be new for Cody. We'll stream it, and Cody and I will watch it with you guys, and then we'll talk about their impressions very briefly. But so big thanks to Damas, Jared, and Artie, who came out and tested a lot of these paddles that we're talking about, and some others. Those guys were great, and I was texting some of them at like 11 midnight, and then the next morning they're like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll come out. And so on our list of paddles that these guys played with, they played with the Chorus Fires, the Ryu, Flare Prime X. We had some Gen 3 Yolas, the Yola 3Ss, Project 007, Selkirk, and then the Pickleball Apes Pulse Series as well. And these guys,
they got a nice,
yeah, there's a lot.
nice
so
roundup.
they just picked whatever paddle. We played games, and they just switched, and then afterwards they shared their thoughts. So should we see?
Awesome.
Should we watch?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Well, thanks for helping me out. Thanks for testing some paddles. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jared. I'm about like a 3.5, between 3.5, 4.0 player. Just live here in North Carolina doing a postdoc here at UNC. So I'm here like every other week.
Nice. Thanks, Jared.
Artie, play a lot of pickleball, probably like 5-6 times a week, maybe 3, 2.5, but that's about it.
I'm Damas, been playing for like 2 years, properly addicted, and yeah, happy to test out some new paddles.
For reference, what level?
Don't really believe in duper, but probably 4 or 5-ish, trying to get a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I have a 4 duper, so.
Damas is modest. He's much better than that. He's probably, he's quite good. Okay, so today these guys tried a bunch of paddles. The Ryu, the Apes paddles, Flare Prime X, the new Chorus Fires, and then we mixed in some others, like you brought your Project 007. We did some YOLO stuff. There's probably a few more in there. So, any favorites?
Yeah, I think the Chorus Fires were my favorite of the bunch that I tried.
Okay, how come?
It kind of hit the sweet spot. It wasn't the Apes paddles definitely were more maneuverable, a little lightweight. They didn't have as much weight in the head, I felt like. Whereas the Ryu, it has a little more weight to the paddle itself, it felt like. It felt a little more solid. And I felt like the Chorus was just kind of right in between. It wasn't too heavy, it wasn't too light, and it was just hitting it really well today.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I'm not sure what it's called, but the Neonic, the blue and the white.
Flow Prime X.
Yeah, I think I'm a huge fan of all court paddles, and that one felt pretty solid. A lot of good contact on it. I feel like the sweet spot's pretty big. The swing through was good. I think I was telling you I like a head heavier paddle, so I'd probably put a little bit more weight on it, but I really enjoyed that one. I think second favorite for sure was the Scorpius.
Ooh, okay.
It's a little light, and since it's 3S, can't really use it at local tournaments, but I really enjoyed that paddle. It feels really good, and I can see why a lot of people prefer that shape over the other ones when like locally. But yeah, overall pretty good paddles.
Yeah, I definitely like the Chorus the best. I tried only 3 of them really, but the Chorus EX, I think, the one that I tried just immediately right off the bat, feels very solid, very heavy in a good way, well distributed weight, kind of heavier handle even. And then I haven't played with anything other than carbon face paddles, so that felt really cool. It was springy. It was like you could truly feel like you're hitting with like a tense wire. And it's very poppy. I'm playing right now with a mod that is not long for this world anymore. So I like the pop. I need it, and it feels like a much sturdier paddle. I feel like I could play with it for months instead of weeks, as opposed to like the Gen 3 has their durability issues. This feels like just a solid product.
Yeah, that's fair. I felt Damas's mod too. It is on its way out, as Armos wants. Okay, cool. Any that you guys particularly did not like?
Oh, Ooh, that's, I think, a tougher question. I don't think any of them really played poorly. I think they were all really great paddles, and I would be happy using any of them as my main. If I were, I tried the wide bodies today. It's a shape I haven't played with, and of the 3 wide bodies, the Chorus, the Ryu, and the Pulse V, I think I would say the Chorus was definitely my favorite, and then the Ryu, and then the Pulse V.
Interesting. How come?
The Pulse V just felt a little more poppy than what I'm used to. So I normally play with the J2K, and so it just took a little longer for me to get used to the Pulse V and the way that the ball was coming off of the paddle face.
Okay.
I think I told you right after I used it, but the Ryu, like the paddle that's on top there, I think the weight distribution on it was just a little strange for me. The only wide body paddles I've tried before have been the Volair Mach 2 Forza, and I tried the Spartus Apollo recently as well. And I think those paddles compared to something like that are just a little bit more solid because the sweet spot's way more forgiving as well. And that was the other thing I told you about the Apes paddle that I used. If you're not hitting the direct middle of that paddle, it does not feel good. But as soon as you hit that sweet spot, the paddle can kind of launch the ball. Like, I'm shocked they were marketing as more of like a control, like a all-court leading control paddle. So I am curious what you're saying about a broken-in one versus a brand-new one. So I'll let you talk more about that. But
Yeah, and you, for reference, you used a broken-in Pulse S, the hybrid shape, and it's kind of a little more narrow than a regular hybrid shape, but a broken-in Pulse S as opposed to the V you used. Okay, Domus, you didn't use quite as many as them, but any you didn't like or whatever?
Yeah, so I used the Chorus Fire EX. Obviously, love that one. Used the Selkirk 007. And then the last one was the Ryu also. Similar to Artie, I'm not used to a wide body paddle. I don't mind the shape, but for me, the actual bottom, like the top of the handle, bottom of the throat of the paddle is a problem. I'm slightly above average size human, so for me, putting that second hand and like actually choking up on a wide body paddle doesn't feel comfortable. It's very wide immediately. There's not that like taper. Playing wise, it wasn't bad. Weirdly, the extra half an inch of reach that you're missing does feel a little bit different. But overall, yeah, for me, really just the handle was kind of the problem. Out of the 3 of them, was probably my least favorite.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. So the Ryu is like kind of a half Z Gen 3. I think I was telling some of you. Domus might not have been there, but it's like got 2 layers of foam that go up the edge. The Pulse Vs are Gen 3, but they play a little bit different than like the yellows. Of course, the yellows were Gen 3. Neonic was like a Gen 2 thermoformed. It's got like carbon fiber and fiberglass. And then, of course, the choruses were that, polyester, titanium stuff. I'm curious if you guys had noticed or felt any difference in if you could tell they were constructed differently, like in their Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 1, or like, and I think the Pulse Vs, they're a Kevlar hybrid as well. If you could tell, moving between them, that they were quite different.
I think for me, really the only big difference I could tell switching between the paddles was going from the Gen 3's to the Neonic. So I could feel a difference, but I can't say if that was because of the construction versus the paddle face, the face material. So take that for what it's.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's probably both. I mean, well, it is both, but yeah, good.
I definitely felt a difference, especially going from the Neonic to the Apes. You said Pulse S, right? I like the Neonic paddle a lot because it is a Gen 2 paddle. I'm not a super huge fan of the Gen 3 technology to begin with. Like, I think some companies do it much better than others. But the Pulse S, the sweet spot is so narrow, and I think that's part of it is because of the construction of that paddle.
Yeah, I went between. So I went from Chorus to Selkirk to Ryu. So obviously the Selkirk feels very different. It has that same power air feel of hitting with a plank. It feels a lot better. The grit feels better than other Selkirk paddles. Like, it feels like it might still be there a month from now. But to me, it's like it felt like it's generating its pop like a springboard instead of a trampoline like other Gen3's. Like you could feel the throat flex hitting the ball. So yeah, very different construction. But yeah, for me, even construction-wise, Chorus was the favorite. It felt like that's not something I'm going to break. It just felt solid, and yeah, presumably that the characteristics kind of stay the same because my mod, every week is a slightly different paddle.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. That was very helpful. I think people will like to hear what you have to say. Let us know what you think. Next time I'll have more mics than just one. So and maybe we'll do something better than the back of the truck. I don't know. But anything else? You guys want to? Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next time. So I'll say thanks again to Damas, Artie, and Jared. They came last minute, and then they sat outside in the cold, and we drove around the building till we found like a little shadow to like film a little bit in. I forgot a second mic. It was windy, so it was non-ideal conditions. So the scenario will get better, and they also gave their opinions on like a game or less per paddle. So I thought they did a great job articulating themselves, and I thought their opinions were interesting. I've seen it a couple of times since I like edited down that video. Anything that surprised you about their opinions?
Jared's favorite was the fire, right?
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. At all.
Actually, yeah.
And so I mean, yeah, that was the first thing when he was first like, yeah, I really like the fire, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jared, like it was kind of a spectrum. Like Jared was on the newer side of the people there. He self-rated like between 3.5 and 4.0. Then there was Artie that's like a solid 4 or 5, and then Damas, it's like a very good like advanced player like 5.0 plus. And the spectrums, the bookends, liked the Chorus Fires, and then I was surprised that Artie liked the Eola Scorpius actually. Just knowing he plays a lot with Selker stuff, so it's a different feel, but yeah, as his second choice, so that surprised me.
Yeah.
So
that's that. Yeah, I was pretty. Damas, I was pretty like when he said the fire. I was like, yeah, he probably.
Yeah.
He's probably got that touch where he can dial that 14 millimeter popular paddle in really well, and then he can get to the kitchen and then use the paddle for what it's good for, right? So yeah, that wasn't too surprising, but it was. I was a bit shocked when Jared was like, the fire, and then right off the bat, I was like, okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I was also surprised they didn't. Nobody was like jumping for joy at the Ryu either. Most of them seemed like they fall into the bucket of people that did not like it, or at least were like neutral about it. So I kind of thought they'd like it more, but they didn't.
Yeah, like I said, I really feel like that's going to be one of those paddles where it's like very few people love it, a lot of people won't like it, but the people that love it will freaking love it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Be cool to see what people think that in the wild. So, okay, let's wrap it up, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we close, couple of things. We do have I've got a Black Friday master list going. It includes a lot of the deals that Pickleball Central is giving us as well, with the additional 5% on top of all their stuff. But I mean, in addition to that, I think last I checked, the master list was up to 60, and nice. That the list is cool in my opinion because it's the entry form. So anybody if you hear of a deal, if you know of a deal, it's not on the list, like I'll link it below as well. You can go in and enter that deal, and I'll go through like at least once a day, and I'll add it to the master list. So every deal that I hear about,
That's
or
awesome.
that people tell me, I'll add it on there so that everybody else can use it. So, yeah, feel free. And
That's
your
awesome.
effort helps everybody. So go right ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about your giveaway, Cody. Cody's got a.
Oh yeah.
Cody's
Yeah.
got
So a little bit more
stuff.
about the giveaway. So 12 days of pickleball giveaways, 12 days of Christmas giveaways. It'll start. I'll drop like the full list of all the companies involved and everything on the 1st of December, and then I will starting on the 11th I will announce who the first giveaway is going to be sponsored by, and then I'll draw on the 12th, and then on the 12th I'll have I'll announce who won the day before, and then I'll announce who's going to be sponsoring the giveaway on the 13th, right? And like I said, we got Bodie overgrips, Slice speed caps. I got they're donating a end cap, Droopy Drawers shorts. I absolutely love their shorts. They're super comfortable. Just to name a couple of like the non-paddles, and then we got seven paddle companies that have all donated paddles
what do they have to do
and more.
What do people got to do to get in? Did you say that already? Oh, drop my earpad. drop my AirPod. What do people have to do to get in, to enter?
Oh yeah, so all you got to do to enter is just follow me on Instagram, subscribe to me on YouTube, and then you'll need to follow the companies that are sponsoring, and like I said, I'll be announcing who's going to be like doing the next day, so you can go back to the original post on Instagram and make sure to be following that company, and then tag 3 friends who you think could use some new gear, and then do those few things, and you're entered. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna have 12. Yeah, 12, technically 13 chances to enter. There's a really big giveaway on the 12th day.
Right.
So won't go into the full list of everybody sponsoring it. But just know like there's some great stuff up for grabs.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Cody. And then before we close, I'll just some upcoming reviews. So hopefully today, or even yesterday, whichever one gets edited and published first. So I did an equipment review. So a just north of $100 pickleball launcher. I reviewed the A11 pickleball launcher, the Dinkmaster Pro Lightning Speedballs, Groovin backpack. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys think of like an equipment review. So that's coming. I'll have a Course Fire review, Ripple review. Doing an Overgrips review coming up in December as well. Like, got some Lukey grips, Bodie grips, U-dripping grips, and just kind of the pros and cons of each and what might be good for people. So and then get into some top of the year lists.
That A11 launcher, that thing can actually shoot the ball pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got
the only downside I would say is the lack of like capacity, but like there's ways to get around that. But yeah, I can't wait to see your review on it.
Yeah, I dug up
it's surprising.
I dug up some pros and cons. So there's pros and cons for it for sure, but it's nice. Yeah, I'll leave it for the review, but pros and cons.
Yeah,
pros and cons. So okay, that's it. Thanks everybody. Thanks Cody.
Yeah, and don't forget again the community review portion. Drop your suggestion, and like we said, if we pick your suggestion, you win a free paddle. We'll figure out what paddle it is that you want later, but we'll go from there. But you win. So yeah, we need some suggestions. I can't think of a good name at all.
Okay, let us know. Okay, yeah. Thanks guys.
All right, thanks for watching.